Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? I've just been handed an urgent and horrifying news story. And I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
Papa! Nobody makes me bleed my own blood. Nobody!
So today's movie review is for Desperado.
Back together again, eh?
Yeah.
Let's play.
And as always, I'll first give a quick non-spoiler review with a score before I get into the spoilers of the movie.
Yeah!
So this movie is a 1995 Western-styled shoot-'em-up starring Antonio Banderas and Salma Hayek. This movie is actually the second part of a three-part trilogy, with the first being 1992's El Mariachi, and the third part being Once Upon a Time in Mexico. The movie follows Antonio Banderas' character who is trying to hunt down the person who is responsible for killing the woman he loved.
I'm looking for Butcher, you know him?
The movie is rated R for lots of gun violence, foul language, and nudity. Score-wise for me, I have this movie rated rather well with a 7.5 on a 1 to 10 scale, meaning not only would I recommend it and think it's a good movie, but also if it was coming out today, I would actually go to the theaters and see it. This movie has tons of action, some clever scenes, and a nice little twist at the end, which in general I like when movies do. However, I will say this movie is probably more of a guy-type movie than a girls-type movie. The movie flaunts Salma Hayek in one of her earlier roles, which catches probably the majority of guys' eyes. The movie is also what my great uncle would have called a shoot-'em-up because of all the constant gun violence and explosions. If you want to get a brief idea of the movie before watching it, the original movie trailer does a good job of pumping up this movie without giving too much away. So this ends the non-spoiler review for this movie. From here on, I'll be diving a little bit deeper into this and giving away some of the spoilers. So if that's something you want, I'd recommend turning this off now until you've seen the movie. So if you're still watching plot-wise, like I said, this movie follows Antonio Banderas as he travels to Santo Cecilia after learning that the person he's looking for might be there. After Steve Buscemi elevates the anxiety level at a local bar, Antonio Banderas visits the bar, which ends in one of this movie's many shootouts. After Banderas kills everyone, he leaves and ends up saving the life of Salma Hayek. In return, Salma Hayek's character ends up taking care of Banderas while the drug lords look for him. After a mistake in identity which favors Antonio Banderas' character, the drug lord, which goes by the name of Bucho, deduces Antonio Banderas is in Salma Hayek's bookstore, so he ends up sending some of his thugs to that bookstore to kill Antonio Banderas, which ends up in another shootout. Later, we get one more rather large shootout where Antonio and Banderas calls a couple of his buddies as backup before Antonio Banderas eventually tracks down the drug lord at his house. This is where the twist occurs. We learn that Antonio Banderas' character is actually the brother of the drug lord he's trying to track down. After a back and forth conversation between the two, things turn sour and Antonio Banderas ends up shooting his older brother to save Salma Hayek. The basic plot of this movie, as far as what I liked about it, in general, I like westerns, and what comes with westerns is shootouts, which this movie doesn't lack. You have the early shootout in the bar where Antonio Banderas' character is revealed to be the guy with the guns in the guitar case.
It's him! Well, yes, it's me. It's me.
You also have the bookstore shootout and also the shootout where his buddies each have a guitar case, which ends up being a different type of weapon. If that's not enough, you also get a knife gun type of fight with a young Danny Trejo. This particular scene kind of stands out for its different take on fighting. Lots of movies have shootouts, and lots of movies even have sword fighting, but I can't think of too many movies that have knife throwing fights in them. Really, the top two that I can even think of that feature knives is Crocodile Dundee.
Nick, give him your wallet.
What for?
He's got a knife.
That's not a knife. That's a knife.
And in Gangs of New York with Bill the Butcher.
Apologies, my dear. Pick it up.
Whoopsie daisy!
On the funnier side, Steve Buscemi's character has a pretty funny opening scene where he's trying to scare the bad guys in the beginning of the movie. And Quentin Tarantino also has a couple funny scenes where he's telling a joke at a bar, and also when he realizes there's a gunfight going on in the room next to him.
Is that going on right now?
Cheech Marin also makes an appearance in this movie where he plays a bartender that at one point brags about how the bartender never gets hurt, only to be shot himself later.
So the bartender lived. The bartender never gets killed.
Finally, before I get into the few negatives I had for this movie, the music and the soundtrack for this movie was pretty good. Banderas actually provides his own guitar work for this movie.
Practice this every day. All day. Next time, I'll show you how to play a tune using what you've learned. Practice.
And I'm actually pretty sure he's the one that's singing at the beginning of this movie. So on the negative side, I really don't have that much. I guess one thing that stands out in westerns where there's a lot of shooting is that the bad guys seem to be related to stormtroopers and that nobody can shoot anything. Then you have the typical good guy who can't miss and only needs to reload when it adds tension to the movie. Honestly, though, that's about it. This is a typical Western where the good guy saves the day, gets the girl, and kills the bad guy. End of story. Anyways, that's my review for this movie. I hope everybody enjoyed this, and if you did, please feel free to like and subscribe. And additionally, like I've been doing in my last few videos, I'd like to see who's the first person to be able to identify the character and the movie behind the voice in my opening intro, where I warn everybody about any possible spoilers. No Googling. This should be an easy one. I just kind of find this thing fun to do. So anyways, thank you everybody, and I hope everybody has a good day.